Grace, thank you. Hey, and the reason why I made that special request is I want to talk about an issue that has been close to my heart, and you'll understand why. Some of the things that I've had to deal with, some of the internal struggles that I've had to deal with. What does it mean to listen to your heart? What does it mean to deal with some of the baggage in our heart? What does it mean when God starts convicting? And I think a lot of times, if you're in a position, I'd love to just for all of us to even see each other face to face as we wrestle through all these things. I hope you guys don't mind. Look, I'm seeing some of you guys for the very first time. Some of you guys I know very, very well. I hope you guys will allow me the grace to even just call on you to just pick your brain. And in some sense, if you say, hey, look, Tommy, not feeling comfortable about this one, I'm going to bypass, please feel freedom as we wrestle through some of these things. But yeah, at the same time, here's something that I have really been wrestling with as well too. Our actual story starts in John chapter 4, and where Jesus, many of you guys are very familiar with the story of Jesus and the Samaritan woman. And I'm going to spend some time talking for about 10, 12 minutes. And then from that point on, we're going to spend the rest of the time discussing. But here's the thing. And later on, I'm going to ask for your inputs on this particular verse. Now, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. Very, very key point. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. So a couple of key things to know. He had to go through Samaria is one that sticks out to you. It was about the 6th hour, 12 noon. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink, for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Let's go over to verse 18. Jesus then said to her after a whole conversation, go, call your husband and come here. The woman answered him, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you are right in saying, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you said is true. All right, let me share with you a couple of things. Let me share with this slide presentation that I just did as well too. Grace and everyone, do you guys see this? All right, here is one thing that I really want to be able to. Here's my big idea for you guys. What is inside of you will eventually comes out. What is inside of us eventually comes out, good or bad. And that means especially with your heart issues. Too often in our life as Christ followers, there are things that we deal with in our life. I'll show you an example that we don't want to deal with. But eventually, if we don't deal with it, good or bad, it eventually will come out. And when it does come out, it will have an effect, positive or negative, on your family relationships, on your friendships, on your friendships, relationships with people at church, co-workers, whatever it is. It has an effect on what you do. Many of us as individuals will struggle with some sort of heart issue along the way. All of us at one point or another will deal with one of these heart issues. Some of you guys sitting here today may even be dealing with the issue of guilt. You're involved in something that no one knows. You have done something that no one ever knows, and you live with that guilt. You live with that sin. You come before the Lord and you feel guilty. When you read your Bible, you feel guilty. When you pray, you feel guilty. When you sit at service and you hear a sermon on sin, you feel guilty. You're dealing with guilt. Some of you may be sitting here and you're dealing with the issue of anger. You're mad at someone. Someone or something didn't happen. Your parents you may be fighting with, sibling, friends, coworker. You may have not gotten a break in work. You're dealing with anger. If not anger, maybe you're dealing with the issue of jealousy. Why does so-and-so get that break? Why does so-and-so always get that? Why don't I get those opportunities that so-and-so is? Why do things come so easy for that person? Why in the world are they more wealthier than I am? I've worked harder than, why does it come so easy? You may be dealing with this issue of jealousy, or it may be the issue of greed. It's my life. It's my plans. It's what I want to do. I get to decide. Going back to the main question, the big idea, what is inside of us will eventually come out. And when it does, it has a domino effect. It affects all aspects of your life, and it affects it in a very negative way. The story of Jesus and the Samaritan woman begins with this whole story of that Jesus had to go through Samaria. And when you're sitting there looking at all of this, you're sitting there, why in the world did he go through Samaria? Okay, for some of you guys, simple geography as well too, right? Here is on the left side of my picture, I have Judea. That's where Jesus is. He needs to go up north to where Galilee is. Well, the easiest way to go there is through Samaria. It's a straight shot. But in some sense, what we find from the passage, Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jews do not go through Samaria. They go around that whole area, past Samaria, around Samaria, into where Galilee is. Jews do not associate with Samaritans. But yet, Jesus, in this particular passage, he and his disciples had to go through Samaria. Then we also know this. Jesus sits by the well. His disciples go and gets the first food. It is now about the 6th hour, 12 o'clock. Hottest point in the year. I'm not sure if some of you guys have been to Israel. I've gotten a chance to get to Israel. At one point, we took about 500 people at one of my former jobs. We took 500 people for about 3 weeks to Jerusalem and Bethlehem. During those times, we tried to do all of our visits early in the morning. We got everyone on buses around 7 a.m. By 12 o'clock, that we tried to get everyone into an indoor restaurant in order to have lunch. Why? Because it's too hot. So in some sense, this woman then comes at the 6th hour. She comes, why does she come? Why does she decide to come at the last hour? What is it about this woman? And so suddenly now she encounters Jesus. Jesus asks for a drink of water. She's surprised. Not only is she a Samaritan, not only is Jesus a Jew, Jews and Samaritans don't deal well with each other, but more so now, why in the world would a man talk with a woman? What is it about that woman that's so unique? And so suddenly now we begin to read, it's 18. Jesus said to her, go, call your husband, and come here. The woman answered him, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you are right in saying, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. All right, here's where I need your help now for the beginning in terms of thoughts. When you read this about the Samaritan woman, put your thinking cap on, put yourself in this particular woman's shoes. What can you tell me about this woman? Give me all your thoughts of what assumptions that you can make about this woman as you read into. So let's put into the chat section and we'll just go through it, okay? So think through it and then let's talk through it. What is it about this Samaritan woman that strikes you, that you can anticipate, that you are sitting there understanding as you put yourself in her shoes? What are you thinking? What are you assuming about the Samaritan woman? Love your thoughts. John chapter 4, what is it about the Samaritan woman that stands out to you? Let me start you guys off with, oh, here we go. She comes when there's not a lot of people. Very hot about the 6th hour because she doesn't want to be seen. Perhaps she's feeling guilty. Very, very good point. There's a reason. Hey, look, everyone's getting water at the early part of the day. That's where everyone hangs out. Why is this woman suddenly coming at a point where she knows no one's there? Chelsea, very, very good point. What else? She is perhaps insecure. Grace, let me ask you a quick question. Why is she insecure?
Because she's bouncing around from man to man, and I don't know, this is just assumption, but perhaps it's because she's looking for some sort of meaning, worthiness. I don't know, something to fill her.
Yep, something feel. Hey, and in some sense, we never really know the true story of why she bounces from husband to husband to husband. It never tells us, but there are some assumptions that you have. She was too well aware with the divide between some Jews and Samaritans. Very good point. There's a race issue. There's an ethnicity issue as well too. All right, here's another one. So Febby writes, is she doesn't feel satisfied, looking for something better. Febby, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you can unmute yourself, give me more insights. What are you thinking about this one?
Oh, I think similar to the Grace's point, she was bouncing from husband to husband. Maybe she was looking for like a perfect man and couldn't find it, and so she might be looking for something more.
Yep. And going with Febby, what Grace says, here's the one thing we don't understand. Is she the one choosing to bounce from man to man? Or did her husbands die? What did they pass away? Did they all leave her? Did they divorce her? And in some sense, why do you think, going to this woman, she feels the need to go from one man to another, to get married to another? Is there, someone mentioned, Grace mentioned insecurity. Is there an insecurity about her which causes her to go from man to man after 5 husbands? And look at it. Who's the 6th person? A man that's not even her husband. So now she's finally able to settle on the 6th person who chooses not even to be her husband. I'll give you another thought. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think is her reputation in the city? What do you guys think?
Did you say her reputation or the reputation of the city?
What do you think people in the what do you think her reputation is from people in the city?
I mean, not so great. The fact that she has to, get water at an hour that is the hottest means that she's trying to hide. She's ashamed to be seen. So probably not a great reputation.
Guys, we don't know any of this, but we can make assumptions based on the fact that she suddenly comes at the 6th hour. She comes at a time where she thinks that no one's going to be there. She's startled when she sees a person sitting there, much less a Jewish man who asks her for a drink of water from a well, who is willing to drink from her cup or whatever that she does to draw water. It's not only a Jew, but it's also a man. And this Jewish man knows that she's had 5 husbands. And this man, and for her, a lot of times, she's gone from husband to husband. She suddenly is at the 6th person. Did they all divorce her? Did they die? Either way, she's listed as taboo. If they all died from her, they're saying her, what in the world is causing her to really be able to, for everyone to die on her? She has a bad reputation. Now, if she's divorced and everyone left her, then they're wondering, okay, so why in the world did all five of you guys leave her? And now this sixth person thinks that much of you where he's willing to be with you, but he doesn't want to be married with you. Okay, now let's say the other one, she's leaving all of them. So what's wrong about you that you're leaving all of them? What's your reputation? Either way, all three options leaves her a bad reputation as well too. And so suddenly now, think about her. She is living with a lot of insecurities. People probably don't want to deal with her. People don't want to associate with her. She definitely doesn't want to have too many friends want to be associated with her. She lives in isolation. She lives in loneliness. She lives with a reputation over her head. She's dealing with a lot of emotional pain. She's dealing with a lot of spiritual pain. She's looking, this Jewish man says to her, I will give you a drink of water. I want that water because there's something of a need that she has to meet. And so in some sense, where I'm going with it, guys, and you guys probably know all this, and I hope when you go into these stories, you're diving into the character. You're thinking through the character. You're understanding what makes this character tick. This character that we hear about the Samaritan woman is looking for someone to build into her. Jesus meets her where she's at and helps her to understand. And where I'm saying this and why this story is so important, each one of us are the Samaritan women. All of us at one point or another would deal with one of these. We are dealing with guilt. We're dealing with anger. We're dealing with jealousy. We're dealing with greed. And we don't want people to see us. Here's what I love about my friend Steve Cuss, who I've gotten to know and who you guys have heard. That when you and I struggle with heart issues, we do one of three things. We run from it because it is too uncomfortable. We fake it. We pretend like everything is okay. We live a life of hypocrisy, and we hope the problem goes away. Or we develop the ability to mind the gap. What does he mean about that? And he describes it this way. Minding the gap means pausing and tuning into an inner dialogue and understanding why your shadow self, and I will say this, all of us have a shadow self. Our shadow self shows our true feelings, our true heart nature, where we truly are, because we all have a public persona. We show people a certain persona about ourselves. We want people to see a certain persona. We want people to see our spiritual side. We want to see a certain side that we display. But our shadow self, our inner self, shows who our true self. We understand why your shadow self is not reflective of who you are and what reoccurring patterns are happening in your life. Every one of us is shadowed by an illusory person, a false self. We are not very good at recognizing illusions, least of all the ones we cherish about ourselves. Ones we are born with and which feeds the root of sin. A life devoted to the cult of this shadow is what is called a life of sin. In our zeal to become the landlords of our own being, we cling to each achievement as a kind of verification of our own self-proclaimed reality. We become the center, and God somehow recedes to an invisible fringe. Where are you at? And let me tell you why, as we dive into closer, and let me tell you why. I would love, that's why I wanted to have you guys turn on your camera so we can have this discussion. Because sometimes it's so easy to hide behind a camera and all that other stuff. And so sometimes when we share, it is good to see each other face to face and see our emotions, our expressions. What's the heart issue that you're dealing with? Which one of these are you dealing with? You dealing with guilt? Sitting here dealing with anger? Are you struggling with jealousy? Are you struggling with greed? Let me give you mine, and let me be the first one to share. On the outside, I like to portray certainty and confidence. I am prone to speak in absolutes, even when I'm not sure. And I have a deep need to be impressive. I like being the leader. I like showing everyone that I have it together. I like showing you that I know what it takes, that everything is going to be okay. Here's what I feel every single day. What I really try to hide every single day as you get to know me is the insecurity that I face each and every single day. I am always wondering what people think of me. I live with such internal angers from the wrong I've experienced through ministry, work, and my own personal life. The result is that I have become a people pleaser. I don't handle conflict well. I actually avoid conflict. And I do things to prove people wrong in order to make myself feel better. Let me tell you why. My parents, and to this day, I'm actually still fighting with my mom, and she hasn't talked to me for about 3 months. My mom was very hard on us growing up. It was either a belt or a hanger, and we had to get straight A's all the time. My parents immigrated to the US, it's 1972. I was born in 1977. When they immigrated to the US, we were dirt poor. We didn't have very much money. We didn't have very much food. They worked hard coming into America as citizens, newly citizens from Hong Kong as well as China. But my mom had a temper about her. It was never enough. You always had to study. And she always held resentment all the time. I remember us growing up, and now I'm going to be very transparent and honest with you. Her anger was so much that when we were younger, at 10 to 12 to 13 years old, if you disagreed with my mom, she would just scream at you until you apologized. She would throw things from the shelves at you. And there are days when we were kids, if you disagree with her, she would just put on her jacket and leave and be stuck with you. At one point, I still remember at 13 years old, she took out a knife and put it in her throat and said to us, "I'm going to kill myself and send all you kids to jail if you ever disagree with me again." She messed us up pretty badly. My sister, who is 2 years younger, I haven't seen my sister in 15 years, 16 years. She and my mom got at it, and she disappeared from home. And she always felt like my brother and my twin brother and I would give in to my mom, and she stopped speaking to us as well too. Haven't talked to her in 15, 20 years. Later on, growing up in China, growing up in the area where it's predominantly white people, you were chased by white kids. I was one of only 5 Chinese kids, Asian kids in my block. So every single day growing up in 4th to 8th grade or whatever it is, you were chased by white kids. Every single block you ran down, there they were waiting for you all the time. And they would just chase you in order to beat you up. I grew up at 7th grade going to high school, and I was kind of chubby. I was never the smartest kid in class. I worked hard for my grades, but it just didn't come naturally. I was ridiculed at school for being the fat kid all the time. Kids would just make fun of you all the time. Folks, I hated myself in the mirror. I hated myself in the mirror. I grew to have so much anger inside of me that I just hated what I saw. But then I went to church. And the only reason I went to church is because my parents wanted us to learn social skills. And there I came to know the Lord. But as much as I learned the Lord through a wonderful youth pastor, I fell into a deep trap. I loved ministry because I was very good at it. I was very faithful. And for the first time in my life, people started saying good things about it. That was my senior year in high school. Oh, all throughout life, in college, I was the president of my Christian group over at Washington University in St. Louis. Sophomore year, got voted in. Then from that point on, graduated and got involved in our high school ministry, college ministry. Loved the Lord, thought about being a pastor. Deep inside of me, there was a guilt. There was a part of me that love the applause, that love the nice things that people said about me, that started eating it up. And deep inside me, the guilt that I struggle with is, Lord, I know that I love you, I love ministry, but there's a part of me that loves the great things that people say about me. And I started dealing with that guilt. And that went on for years and years and years. When I finally went to seminary and I finally then went into pastoral ministry, I sat there and I said, I need to be held accountable to it. Some of you guys may have heard this story. I sat down with our church elders and I asked for an internship for the church. And I told them that I would love to be a pastor and be involved in this church that I grew up with, that I came to know the Lord with, that for the last 18 years, I served in your high school ministry and your college ministry. And by the way, I actually grew your college ministry from 19 students to 93 students as an unpaid volunteer. I did it for 18 years. But I said to this group of elders, I need to be held accountable for my heart, and here's why that I'm dealing with. Well, folks, and let me actually start sharing as well too. Well, folks, here's what happened. Not only did they say, and here's what they said to me, Tommy, we thank you for sharing your heart issues to us. You clearly have some heart issues that will never allow you to qualify for ministry, not ever in this church. Ever will you ever qualify for this ministry? We don't even believe that you qualify for ministry because of your heart issues. That's it. That's all they said to me. Next Sunday, I sat there at service and I get a bulletin and it says that Tommy Lee has decided that he's going to step down and take a break from ministry. Well, that was news to me because no one ever told me that. And I guessed I was fired from my job without me even knowing it. I was angry. So angry. The church who I came to know the Lord with, the people who I looked up with, the people who I was going to sit there for the first time in my life and open up my life to you. You now turn your back on me and closed the door and told me I didn't qualify for ministry. Wow, that hurt me. And I had no place to go. I had no church to turn to. I was out the door. And it took me another 10 years to really be able to let go of that anger. Because I'll be very honest with you, it went from guilt pretty fast to anger. And I wanted to prove those guys wrong. And I wanted to make sure that I accomplished and did so many good things just to prove them wrong. And pretty soon I dealt with some of those heart angers. And you know what? I sat there with a professional counselor for 2 years, dealing with that anger, wrestling with that anger, dealing and letting that anger go. Because I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to stick it to them. I wanted to show them what they were missing. I had to let it go. And pretty soon now, here I am in ministry at Resource Global. I will tell you, I still remember it is a temptation to prove to them wrong. I still remember all the faces and all the names of the kids in high school who made fun of me. Boy, do I want to show them wrong. I get involved in church ministry now with Resource Global. I get a chance to work with a lot of Christian ministries leaders, pastors who I read in books, who I looked up to. They are some of the most hypocritical individuals I have ever met, who have used and abused me and other people, where I've come disenchanted. I've had to wrestle with that. 6 years ago, when Resource Global first started, when we first started our very first cohort with Jenny's husband, Bram, before Grace even showed up, I was diagnosed at 39 years old with cancer. And I'm sitting there and I almost quit and folded up Resource Global. My wife says to me, we've been working hard for the last couple of years. You now are struck with cancer in your nose and in your sinus. Why don't you just quit and get a real job? I had job offers from many different places. And I even entertained those job offers. And I talked with those guys about those job offers. But I will say this, and this is why I have a deep love for the folks in Jakarta. The young leaders like you guys sitting right there in Jakarta, gave me hope because the Jakarta cohort grew. And the Jakarta cohort and all the leaders gave me hope that when I was in my hospital bed, you gave me hope when I best needed it. I was ready to throw in the towel. I was ready to call it a day. I was tired. I lived in pain for 6 weeks, nonstop pain. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't swallow. I had no taste buds. I had no saliva. I had nothing. And I sat there in so much pain. I want to scratch my eyes out and throw myself out that window because I couldn't stop the pain. And I kept praying, Lord, give me 5 minutes of relief. And I kept wondering, why in the world is life so hard? I've gotten myself over here, Lord. I've wrestled through my life just to get to this point. And when everything is going well, now I'm stuck with this cancer thing? Come on, can I get a little break for once in my life? And here I am. Those are hard issues I have to deal with. Now, here's where my thing is. Every single day, I deal with those hard issues. Every day, I live with anger. Every day, I want to prove people wrong. Every day, I struggle with being a people pleaser. I want people to like me. I don't like when people don't like me. I don't deal with conflict because I don't want people to not like me. But I would probably say all those hard issues in my life has grounded me, has allowed me to continue to try to remain humble, to try to look, people invested in my life. My job is mostly just to invest in other people's life and give them the glimmer of hope that Jesus showed me so many years ago and continues to give me strength. And I say this to you, I'm not motivated by power. I don't really get motivated by money very much. I am motivated when I get to see the light bulb go on in different people and I could give them hope. And that's why a lot of times I'm okay when other people get the glory because, look, I've gotten this far and it hasn't been easy. And God is continuing to show his blessings upon me. With that said, last 30 minutes, I'm gonna call on your name. And if you don't like it, please refrain. Think about it. What's your heart issue that you're dealing with? What's going on in your heart? What do you have to wrestle with in your heart? Give you a minute to think about that. I'll be right back. Like, grab a quick paper towel, and I'll come back and I'll give you guys a call. Give me a minute. Anyone want to volunteer a little bit, or I may start calling some names? What are some heart issues that you're dealing with today? That if God had to sit there and say, I have a plan for you, Josie, I have a plan for you, Abe, I have a plan for you, Raina or Dewey. Before I do, I need you to deal with this heart issue. As we continue to grow closer, here's something you're gonna have to be aware of. What's that heart issue? For me, I had to deal with guilt and anger and greed. Greed was never an issue. More so, it was more jealousy, greed, and anger were some of the things I had to deal with. I'm going to start off with our fearless leader, Grace. If I had to ask you that question, what would you have to deal with? What do you have to deal with?
Well, first of all, Tommy, thank you so much for sharing your story. That was incredibly vulnerable. And I think that takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to unpack your entire life story and see like all these heart issues that you had to deal with and how that made you the person you are today. I am also still figuring out and trying to grow in self-awareness and figuring out like what are some heart issues that keep popping up over and over again. I actually was going to say shame, but now I realize shame is probably a healthier version of shame is guilt, probably. Um, I think I grew up in an environment where a traditional environment where my parents wanted me to always do well, get good scores, and perfection was encouraged, right? And so bringing that to my adulthood, I'm really hard on myself when I make mistakes. Um, and along with that, when I do make mistakes, it's hard to admit them. And so I think guilt is something that keeps popping up. But I understand that, like, in order to improve and grow, there needs to be self-compassion and letting myself know that it's okay. I'm human. It's okay to make mistakes, learn from it, grow from it, and move on. But there is a tendency to dwell on the mistakes and make conclusions that, all right, I shouldn't do this anymore. I shouldn't be a leader anymore. I shouldn't be speaking anymore. And so it is a constant battle every day, knowing that I'm imperfect and that I make mistakes all the time. So those are some things I'm dealing with.
Grace, very, very thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christine, what about you?
I think my heart issue is similar to yours, Tommy. I think in a way people also see me as someone who has it all together, always calm, rational, and collected. When actually inside there's a lot of like issues raging in my heart. There's like always issue with parents also. The way that my parents rear us up, it's very strict and there's no gentleness at all. Especially on the part of my mom, right? I remember whenever I fall and I get hurt, there's this medicine in Indo that's really effective at treating wounds, but it's really painful. It really stings. And my mom would call on my aunt to comfort me instead of her, because her job would be to administer the medicine.
Yeah.
So I'll be there kicking and yelling and crying, and she had no compassion at all for that. The compassion comes from my aunt. She didn't even care about naming her kids, by the way. We're named by my aunt. So I think like throughout my life, I always feel like I'm unwanted and that I'm never gonna be good enough. I'm never gonna be picked because my parents never protected me emotionally, and they would always prioritize other people, other things over their kids. And I don't know how this impact my brothers, but because I'm the oldest, I guess like a lot of the mistakes were pounded on me. I'm there first. So that's what I struggle with every day.
And Christine, now Christine, do you have kids at all? The hardest part with me having two girls, right? I find myself being my mom. I find myself when I encounter those two girls, I'm hard on them. I've had to learn how to understand and care for my girls. I really have had to do it. It's the same thing for you, is as you wrestle through some of those things, to really do have a hard check with you. And when you do have kids, to really sit there and say, what would I do differently? What does that look like? How do I care for them? What did I feel? And then from that point on, put yourself back in those kids, because sometimes without you knowing it, you're going to do the same things that your parents do without you even, you just do it. So you have to work and wrestle through some of those things. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's hard with parents, isn't it, Christine? It is very, very hard with parents. My mom has to talk to me for 3 months because you wrestle with that.
I mean, I'm already doing it with my staff.
Yeah, yes.
I don't have kids, so I do it to my staff.
Very good. Yeah. Jeff, what would you say, Jeff?
I think mine would be, I've been wrestling to seek acknowledgement from my dad. So even till now, like even after I turned over the company from the verge of bankruptcy, I guess that's what I kind of like still seek acknowledgement from him, to the point where I demanded it, that I get very angry when he doesn't acknowledge my effort, what I've accomplished and what I've done. The fact that I turned down jobs offer after my graduation to come back and support the pharma business. Um, and yeah, that's my struggle. And recently, I think God allows me to see what's gonna happen to me if I don't let it go. I met a client actually. I think he's about 60, and his father just passed away, and he's still so angry with his dad, and he's not happy and content with how successful his business is, and he still even till now after his father passed away, he still wants to prove to his dad, and yeah, I guess that's my current struggle. It's been hard, and I'm currently trying to learn to let that go.
Wonderful. Jeff, my dear friend, and I think a lot of times for you, it's sitting there saying, Lord, what happens if my dad never thanks me or never acknowledges me? What does it mean to die to myself and learn to deal with that and learn to love him as Christ would? Even if he never acknowledged it, even if he never thank you, what does it mean for me to still love him? Thank you very much. Febby, what would you say, Febby?
Um, oh yeah. I think what I struggle most is it touched upon like four of the things in a way. So I think I've always found myself like having my identity and value coming from acceptance or like belonging and it kind of like peace in a way. Like peace meaning like no conflict at all, which
Yeah.
isn't healthy. And I feel like that kind of like made me like suppress my anger. And then sometimes I feel guilty to the point where like all this is not even like the things I can control, but it for some reason it made me guilty and like jealous if some other people are doing better or like other people like that person better. Um I think it kind of stems on so both of my parents have like 9 to 10 siblings, and I think their their childhood growing up is just kind of like vowing attention from their parents, right? And so somehow I think they modeled that behavior when they're parenting me and having like and then they're acting like their parents as well, so kind of vying for attention as well from them and kind of just throughout my life, that's what I've been struggling with.
Yeah. Febby, I have a friend who always seems to compare herself to other people, and she's never happy because she's always comparing.
Right.
I say to her, why in the world are you comparing? She wants to compare salaries, she wants to compare jobs, all of that stuff. I said, can't you just be happy? But for her parents raised her up always comparing and pitting her against her sister, and they had to learn how to deal with that. Thank you, Febby. Yeah. Josie, what would you say, Josie?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Tommy, for sharing your story and everyone as well who have shared your stories. It's very good to see how God is working in midst of everything that we feel like the heart issues. For me, I think I'm struggling with guilt and jealousy, and I didn't know that I was struggling in it until I got new responsibilities in my work, and I keep feeling guilty, like because I couldn't perform as I was thinking that I should. And then I didn't also know that I was dealing with jealousy until I told my best friend, and then he I keep complaining like why I couldn't perform as good as this person or that person, and then he said that it's me being jealous, like comparing myself to others, and then comparison kills. So I think I'm currently trying to process with it, like for the guilt part, like I try to I think this is one of the devotional plan in the Bible app. Like they say the antidote to guilt is like grace. I think I keep guilty because I don't think I deserve all the good things, and I need to perform like double or triple to keep it up. I think I relate with Tommy a lot when you said you're a people pleaser. I think I'm a people pleaser as well. In this case, maybe to my manager, to my teammates. Yeah, but even though I know that maybe I don't deserve it and I got all of this by grace. It's still a bit difficult for me to stop being guilty and just do the work, I guess.
Josie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Fanny, what about you? What would you say, Fanny?
Um, I think for me, it's mostly I get jealous a lot, and I'm also a people's pleaser. And especially since I just got two not newborns anymore, 8 months old kids, and at the same time as a lot of people around me also started having kids, kind of comparing myself a lot. Like I try to show that I take things easily, but then just a little bit of things here and there that make me realize that deep down I'm actually not that chill about a lot of things. But yeah, and then a lot of insecurities about how I'm gonna raise them, financial insecurities as well. And yeah, I think a lot of my conversations with God is mostly asking God to teach me to surrender all the uncertainties in my life.
Yeah. Got it. Fanny, thank you very much. And she mentioned a lot of times is asking God to surrender. And so sometimes, a lot of times it becomes a journey where it doesn't happen overnight. We're coming before the Lord each and every single day, asking him to surrender. Audrey, thoughts? Thank you so much, Fanny, Josie. Audrey, what about yourself?
I guess what I'm like currently working on is I guess like trying to open up a bit more, or like being vulnerable a bit more. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it comes from like family backgrounds and like upbringing and everything. But I guess sometimes you want to build like real relationships, you have to be able to be vulnerable and open up as well. So I guess I'm really trying to work on that right now.
Yeah. Audrey, one of the things I challenge you, and look, I'm not saying be open to everyone, but find a couple of people, 2 or 3 people that you could really be able to say, hey, here's my life. Let me just learn to practice and learn to be open. And or even in terms of your prayer life, learn to be open to God. Learn to express your feelings to God, your struggles, your heart issues to God, and learn how to be open that way. Thank you so much, Audrey.
Thank you, Tom.
Willie, thoughts?
So for me, I think I always struggle with the I guess competency thoughts, because I always feel like I need to be competent in certain things so that I could get like recognitions, but also to feel worthy of something, right? To feel like I'm contributing back to society. And so that's always like a big thing for me, where I feel like, oh, I need to be good at something, or like or if I have to, like, if I can't be good at this, then I'm not really helping out with, let's say, work or family or whatnot, and so I feel like there's always that I have a big imposter syndrome, I guess, where I always feel like I'm incompetent, like I need to overcome that so that I can, be recognized by, my community. So, yeah.
Willie, my challenge for you in that regards is a lot of times do some thinking, reflection about why that feeling is there. And a lot of times when you start looking at your journey, what drives that? What is it that happened that helps you reflect upon that? And then in some sense, what do you need in order to reaffirm that you're competent? And in some sense, that shows you what you're feeding on, so you could address some of those different issues. Yeah. Jenny, what about yourself?
I don't know where this falls under, but I think in the past year, especially, I've been struggling a lot with self-condemnation. So maybe it's like a bit of guilt and anger. I'm not sure. I think, I mean, when I was thinking about like my life story, since I was young, like I think, like don't get me wrong, like I love my parents, I love my siblings, but I think growing up, I always felt different. Like my family, including my extended family, used to joke that I was like adopted. So like because I look different, like personality is very different, characters like the most different. So they always joke like that. So I think in a way I felt like I needed to be a certain way to be accepted like in the family. And so like that's been the main message I have growing up. And it becomes not just with the family, but even with like community. So that's the main message. Like I have to be a certain way to be accepted. And so, I mean, like thankfully after knowing Christ, I know that I'm freed from that because God accepts me however I am, even when He sees all my flaws and weaknesses. Like He loves me and He accepts me and He adopts me into His family. But there are still a lot of things that I need to unlearn in my mind. And so I think my very first response whenever I find myself, like I actually deal a lot with like anger and impatience. And sometimes like to a point that I would explode in like rage when I'm like uncontrollable. And my first response whenever I find myself like that is like I condemn myself. I'm like, why? Like, why? Like I repent and then like I do the same thing sometimes the next day, or and so it's very hard, like dealing with that self-condemnation. I have to always go back to God and remind myself that like God doesn't condemn me, like He's forgiven me for all my past, present, and future rage and shortcomings. Yeah, and sometimes I would run to like things that are like harmful as well, like whenever I'm condemning myself. But yeah, thankfully God intervenes, and yeah, that's still something I'm working on right now. Just like I think proclaiming the gospel over and over again whenever I deal with that self-condemnation.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Abe, thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, thinking about it, I think it's probably jealousy. Obviously, there's probably other things, but I think one thing that came to mind is jealousy because I grew up with a sickly brother, so he had kidney failure growing up, and then because of that, it's like I developed a public persona of like self-sufficiency, meaning like, oh, I don't need attention. Hey, everything's okay. Like he needs it, and I think I sincerely believe that. But deep down, I think I'm jealous of him getting all the attention, right? Like as children. So I think I feel like somewhat when I was growing up, and I think it was more intense when I was growing up, but I feel like a small tint of happiness whenever I get sick, because I think I perceive it as an opportunity for me to get attention that I usually don't get. Usually it's like my parents, they kind of like pull all the intentions away, right? To my brother. But the flip side of things is whenever I get attention, I also feel guilty because it's like, hey, I'm not supposed to be getting this. So I avoid it at the same time. So it's like it's a weird loop. But now I think I realize it. I think now it's like whenever I doing what I'm doing, having the successes that I experience, whenever I see other people getting success that I don't get, there's like a small spark of like, why not me? Why can't I get that? Why Why is it that I don't have access to the experience? Why am I doing what I'm doing now? Should I be doing other things to get those experiences instead, even though maybe it's not my part maybe it's not God's plan for me, right? Yeah, so I think that's what I some things that I experienced from my end.
Very good. Thank you, Abe. Dewey?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sharing, Tommy and everyone. So from my end, I think jealousy is a big part. Although I do have like guilt and anger, it all intertwines. But jealousy was one that I actually also shared to my mentor. I shared to her, like, I feel when I hear people get promoted and they're not believers, I feel that it's unfair. Well, it's and I didn't get the chance as well. I feel it's unfair that they're getting more blessing in professionally, like in the career wise, like they're more blessed than I am. And then my mentor actually said to me, don't get jealous of seeing unbelievers get blessed, because they have all the blessings right now on earth, but later in the eternal life, you have the greatest blessing of all, which is salvation. But then after that session, I found myself getting jealous of believers as well. Like there are people whom I love, like they're like my close friends, they're believers, and then they get really great opportunities. And then I said to God, like, why haven't I got that moment yet? Like that great moment, like they're having. So that's what I'm still struggling right now, because I thought we're all believers, we have the same favor, we have the same blessings from God, but I still feel sometimes, why is it unfair, God? Why haven't I got that chance yet? So that's what I'm still I have to like set my heart straight most of the days, so I don't so that I can be like really happy for them and not get jealous when I hear good news. And then another is also I think at this age, like I do get angry because I've always seen myself achieve more at the age that I am currently now. And I do look back and see my parents, like they have accomplished so much when they're at my age, but I feel like I haven't achieved that yet. So I think the way that I go about it, like I found myself doing so many things in the past few years, and I think that's due to myself trying to achieve more. So like I joined new lessons, I joined new clubs and everything. Like I reflected back and see, why am I doing all this? It turns out because I'm angry that I haven't accomplished so much. So yeah, I think that that's what I'm going through.
Got it. Thank you, Dewey. Reina?
I think for me, I think a little bit mix of the stories that you all have shared a little bit. Like I'm a firstborn, so I feel like I always have to be the responsible one, can ask for help, has to like basically carry all the time. So I feel like even until now, it's still like in me. So yeah, working through that.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to go finish up. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Manigam? Manigam, you there?
Yeah.
How was Stanley? Stanley, you there? Zena or Eugene? Eugene, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I think one of my struggles that I always try to deal with myself is actually the insecurity. So being born as a soul child, and also born from the family where all of the cousins and all of the people are very successful, leads my father to teach me in a very harsh way. So for example, if I got like the first rank in schools or top rank in schools, he doesn't like impress. He's just like, oh, that's normal thing. You should do more. And So that kind of pressures and the kind of things that my parents always taught me, always try to bring that kind of pressures to me, allows me to have lots of insecurity for the past 24 years. It allows me to become lack of confidence when talking to people. There's this moment where I don't want to talk to people, like anyone, including my best friends. So that's probably my current and my also like ongoing struggles every day. How to deal with that? I think for me it's more on just try to have a close relationship with God, knowing that God loves you, God cares for you, and God is the only one who can be there with you when no one can stand upon you. It's something that really helps to cast the anxieties and cast the worries to God. So that.
Thank you very much. Hey, Pauline, are you there? And we'll wrap it up with Pauline if you guys aren't there. All right, let me finish up this thing real fast, okay? Here's the one thing I want to leave you guys with. I'm not sure if you know what this is. It's a kintsugi bowl. Kintsugi means golden joinery. It's a Japanese bowl. It's the art of joining broken pieces of pottery with a liquid resin that resembles gold. The result is a bowl or vase that is more beautiful than the original piece. Each one of us sitting here today are broken. We have broken pieces. That grace seals us all together. It binds us all together. That grace that is found on the cross, nothing that you and I ever did, but which Jesus gives us. And what he has done is mended us into a better being, a greater being, more beautiful being. And the question I leave with you is this. Jesus died to free me from needing blank anymore. How would you guys answer this question? Jesus died to free me from needing blank anymore. What does it mean for you and I to continue to wrestle with some of our heart issues? What does it mean for us to continue to call out some of those heart issues? Because what is inside of us eventually will come out. How do we wrestle through those things? And too often, here's our thing is, we try to be like Jesus. We try to be a good person. We try to pray. We try to do our devotion times. We try to read the Bible. We try to do good works. We try to be involved in church. But trying to be like Jesus and simply following Jesus are two separate things. Grace has saved us. God loves us no matter what. What does it mean for us to understand that grace and continue to follow him? It seems a lot of our issues may also be embedded by our parents. And as I encourage you, wrestle with that. Continue to lift that up before the Lord. Understand what that means. Because if you don't come to grips with that, it will affect your marriage. It will affect your relationship with your kids. It will have a deep effect. The problems won't go away, but it will come crawling back. My wife never has gotten yelled at by her parents because her mom and dad don't like to deal with conflict. My wife's parents are married. They don't really talk. They live in separate homes. One of them lives with me. They still won't acknowledge any of their issues. The dad, in some sense, had a dry cleaning service. He hoped a lot of times there was issues with city violations. And so in some sense, a lot of times he didn't pay attention to it. He hoped the problem would go away. It didn't go away. The building burned down and killed 2 firefighters. He ended up in jail for 9 years. Him and his wife didn't talk about any of these different things, but they hold a lot of resentment. Wife still to this day hopes that all her problems will go away if she just eventually avoids it, where it eventually just subsides. Those problems won't go away. What is inside of you will eventually come out. And if you don't deal with some of those things that you're dealing with, it will affect you as you deal with your coworkers, it'll deal with your friendships, it'll deal with your spouse, and it'll deal with your kids. And so sometimes, as Grace and I have talked about it, I couldn't deal with it myself. I had to wrestle with a professional counselor. I had to sit there and help have someone process that with me. And so I leave that to you. I love you guys. I long to meet you guys in person. I do care for you, and I care about the state of your hearts. Jenny, you're our new program director. I'm going to ask that you pray for us, my friend, and any lasting announcements, anything. And hey, seriously, if any of you guys ever want to talk, email me, WhatsApp me. Let's set up a time to talk. Jenny, Grace, I'm going to turn to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tommy, for sharing vulnerability. I think it's very important that we get in touch like with our heart and process and deal with it, because as you said, like it definitely eventually comes out. And thank you also everyone for participating and sharing your stories. Actually, I would love to hear more from everyone. I think that was like I think everyone God like writes everyone's story differently, but also very personally. And I'm glad that right now we can meet at a time where God has been processing each one of us. So maybe I'll close us out in prayer, and then after that I have a quick announcement, and then Rina will help us take a group photo before we close out. Okay, let's pray together, guys. Lord, I just give so much, Lord, for this morning or nighttime for Tommy, where we can just hear from you through Tommy, to really be digging into our own hearts and the issues that are maybe hidden within, Lord. God, thank you that you are so gracious that you don't let us just continue, living our lives, not realizing all these, but that today you are teaching us to really look inside, God. Lord, I wanna thank you for Tommy, who just spoke to each one of us today, even for the vulnerable story that he just shared to us, Lord, and also for all the cohort members here, God. God, we know that you are a gracious God. We know that you are the God who knows each one of us. You are the one who writes our story, and so we know, God, that we are safe and are now adopted to your family, and that you are working in each of our hearts, God. So may you continue to sanctify us, Lord, in each areas that we maybe are realizing this morning. God, I pray that you continue to just process us, Lord. Process us with your grace, process us with your mercy. Lead us to a place where we can be free from all these heart issues, Lord. And maybe they'll take days, weeks, or even years, God, for some of us, Lord. But help us to persevere, God, because you never stop working in us. So whenever we feel hopeless, we pray that we can see you, God, the God who is hope in itself, Lord. The God who gives hope to us. And so we can continue to be fighting this, processing this, knowing that you continue to bring us out of all these heart issues, Lord. So thank you so much, Lord. We only have 1 month to go until graduation for our cohort, God. We pray that all these things that we hear and learn, Lord, will not just be something that we know in our mind, God, but that it'll be something that will be transformative, God, that it'll change us inside and out, Lord. So thank you so much, Lord, for that. Pray for a restful, meaningful weekend for all of us. We know that you are with us. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.